Right. All right. So welcome everybody to today's call. This is the title is Improve Your Memory, Reduce Brain Fog, and Create a More Agile Brain. I'll give a brief introduction of myself and why we're doing this call today, and then I'm going to turn it over to Whitney, and she's going to pretty much run the show after that. But my name is Zach Comer. I'm the owner of Asheville Medical Massage. I'm recently certified, one of the first folks in the country actually certified as a brain health fitness trainer. So a brain health fitness trainer, my focus with that program has been the exercise side of brain health. Whitney's going to touch on that today, but not go too far in depth with that matter. But in addition to that, I'm the author of a book called High Performance Aging, the Over 50 Exercise Guide to, what is the full title? The Over 50 Exercise Guide to Less Pain, More Energy, and a Body You Can Rely On for Life. The owner of Asheville Medical Massage. We provide bodywork services for pain relief and to help folks improve mobility. A lot of you on this call are clients. And we also provide exercise therapy for those same purposes, as well as fitness-based services for whole body fitness with a focus within that on cognitive function. Would you agree, Whitney, that our workouts are pretty brain enhancing?
They are great to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we kind of have a spectrum of services that we provide in-house. However, as of March 17th through today, so what are we going on? 6+ weeks now, we've had the office closed due to the pandemic. So we've been looking for ways and finding ways to take our offerings and services online. A lot of what we've been doing has been free exercise training. I'll tell you guys, if you stick around to the end of the call, I'll tell you how you can get some recordings of some of the free brain enhancing exercise offerings we've been doing online. I'll send you some recordings if you'd like. But that's enough about me for now. So Whitney Madden, I first met Whitney 16-ish years ago. She came and taught the traditional Chinese medicine portion of the massage program that I was doing. So Whitney was the first person to ever put a needle, acupuncture needle in me. I think it went in this ear somewhere right up there. And so Whitney's been an acupuncturist for over 20 years. For several years now, she's been a certified brain health coach, certified by the Amen Clinics. And now she is the owner of a business called BrainWise Acupuncturists. And in that business, she's providing education to healthcare professionals around the globe, alternative and allopathic, on how to integrate modern neuroscience in with whatever medicine they're currently practicing. Is that a good, concise description?
That is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So just about the format of the call today, Whitney's presentation. She's done things like this. I don't know that she's done this exact presentation. So Whitney, you estimate half hour or so for the?
Yeah, about 30, 35 maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just prepare yourself, guys, for 30-ish minutes of presentation from Whitney. I might jump in at certain times and ask a question in the middle of it. So we'll see. I might keep on her toes in that respect. And at the end of her presentation, we'll open it up to all of you for an opportunity to ask questions. And I'll plan to stay on the line as long as the need be to get those questions answered. If Whitney's got to go, then I'll figure out how to get you guys questions answered at a later time. So, all right. Well, with that, Whitney Madden, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So as Zach said, I'm a trained acupuncturist, and the reason that I got into brain health actually was because of my daughter's brain health. Her biological father had died when she was 5 years old, and that caused post-traumatic stress in her brain. And even with all of my resources and networks of all different types of alternative medicine and Western medicine and shamanic medicine, I mean, I tried everything under the sun for a good 16 years to try to help her. And I knew that the trauma had changed her brain, but I couldn't figure out how to help her with that. And so finally, I found Dr. Amen, and one of the first things that he said is, how can you tell what's going on in the brain if you don't look? And that made a lot of sense to me. And so fortunately, he has looked at, I think he's at about 160,000 brain scans right now. He's got the largest database in the world of brain scans. And so what they did when my daughter was 16 is, at that time we thought that she was failing high school, and we did not think she would be able to graduate. She didn't have any behavioral issues, but she had learning disabilities, and she didn't have any short-term memory at all. She could not follow a story, whether I was reading it, whether she was reading it, whether she was looking at a movie. She could not keep the information in her brain long enough to make sense of it, to then understand what was happening. So we went down when she was 16 and got a brain scan. And when they showed us her brain, it really helped to make sense of what was going on. And for her, she had 4 different hyperactive areas of her brain that were just on fire, stimulated all the time. And then she had one part of her brain that was hypo, which was like not working at all. And so with this combination, she just had no ability to process information. And so when we figured out what was needed, she was then able to, she was failing high school from freshman and sophomore year. She had on her PSATs as a sophomore, she had gotten a 17 percentile. So that kind of tells you like the level of information that she was able to have. And then just 2 weeks after going to the Amen Clinic, a year later, when she was a junior, she took her SATs, and she went from the year prior to having a 17 to a 74%. Wow. And that was just by balancing the precursors, the chemicals in her brain. And to say that that changed her life doesn't quite give enough words to it. It changed her life. I was so floored by her change that I took a month off my practice, which I had never done before. And I became one of their certified brain health coaches. And then I started coming back and putting it into integrating it with Chinese medicine. So you're here, I would assume, because you're interested in improving your brain health function and reducing brain fog and increasing the agility of your brain. So the first thing that we need to do, there's 3 basic steps in order to improve your brain. The first is we need to get an assessment. What is going on in your brain right now? And so hopefully all of you, or many of you, have taken the brain health assessment online and have gotten a report from Dr. Amen, and hopefully you have that with you right now, because I'm going to go through some of that with you. So that's the first thing, is we have to assess what's going on in your brain right now. The second thing is that information then needs to be explained so it will make sense to you, and that's what we're going to do today. And then the third is that you're going to then take action to help, whether it's supplement-wise, food-wise, exercise-wise. There's a lot of ways that we can help to balance out the brain. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing about brain health that I think is really important is to have everybody across the board is important to have a really good multivitamin and multi-mineral food, whole food source, if at all possible. Or Dr. Amen, on his website, he's got some good quality, pharmaceutical quality of multivitamins as well. But as much as I hope that many are eating foods locally sourced and potentially organically grown, and the food is clean, the soil is not as nutrient dense as we need it to be. And our brain consumes 30% of what we eat. 30% of it goes to your brain. And so that's the gas for the brain. And so when you look at your plate, take a look and think about, if 30% of this goes into my brain, is it what I want to go to my brain? Like, am I feeding it really well? So getting good nutrition is really important, but also getting a good multivitamin and mineral on top of that good nutrition is important. And then the other thing is to get on a really good fish oil and a good quality. Dr. Amen again has a really good quality fish oil. It's not very expensive. They have squeezy packets that taste like Johnson & Johnson baby aspirin, actually, is what it tastes like, is a squeezy packet, or there's capsules. There's gel caps as well for fish oil. 30% of the brain is fat. And so you need good fat for your brain to work. A lot of people do not have enough good fat in their diets because of what had happened for the last 20, 30 years, which the American Dietary Association was saying, get rid of the fat, go low fat, go low fat, go low fat. And in the meantime, what that has done is that has set people up for memory issues, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So you need good fat for your brain. And then other things that are really helpful if you have digestive issues, the brain and the gut are interlinked, very much so. Some say the gut is the main brain of the body. Some say the brain is the main brain. Either way, if your digestion needs to be healthy and strong. So if it's not, then taking something like a pro-brain biotic is really helpful. So, and then the other thing is vitamin D. So when you get your blood test, you will have to ask your doctor to request vitamin D. Make sure that it's covered by insurance. People get shocked when that is out of their insurance. So make sure that your insurance will cover it. But your vitamin D, some scientists now are saying that they want to actually change the word vitamin D to reclassify vitamin D to a hormone, because it is so vital to so many functions, and especially for the brain. We do not get outside enough. And even if we do, our skin does not absorb the vitamin D from the sun as much as we need. So that's really, really important, is to have good vitamin D. I will tell you, and you can write this down, that typically in the lab range is, they say 30 to 100 ng/ml is the unit. 30 to 100 is, quote, normal vitamin D level. But I will tell you that functional medicine, which is a Western medicine branch of medicine, that says in order for the body to function optimally, we need 60 to 80. So if you have to take a look at your blood test and look at what the vitamin D level is, request the copy from your doctor and look at it. If your numbers are anywhere from 30 to 60, you're going to need to add supplementation in order to get that up. So that's really important. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the brain types. I'm going to talk about 5 brain types, because the other types 6 through 16 are a combination of these first 5 brain types. So let me go back one more thing. So overall, the exercise-wise for all of the brain types is to walk like you're walking late, 45 minutes a day, 4 to 5 times a week, and then weights at least twice a week. So for the brain, that would be, your bare minimum that you'd want to be able to do. Coordination exercises are really good, and that's, Zach's classes at HPA are fantastic for this. of really using and using cross-lateral left-right things. So things like ping pong and dance and juggling and all of those things are really important exercises for the brain. When I talk about carbohydrates, as we go through the brain types, I just want to make mention, when I say carbohydrates, I mean complex carbohydrates, which means high fiber and low glycemic index, which means foods like sweet potato, oatmeal, vegetables, high fiber fruits, some dairy products, and legumes. That's what I mean by complex carbohydrate. So when I say carbohydrate, that's what I'm talking about. I'm never, ever talking about simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrate is like white rice and, you know, things that turn to sugar really fast. Okay. So the first brain type that we're going to go over is the balanced brain type. So that is somebody who tends to be resilient, focused, has good impulse control, has balanced emotion. The pandemic during this time, how it is affecting this brain type, if you're a brain type 1, is it will affect them, but it will not put them down. They have more resiliency and more brain reserve in their brains to be able to handle such situations as the pandemic. So the one thing you want to be careful of is that even though there may not be anything hugely off balance, you still want to make sure that with the brain type 1, just like every other brain type, that you are building brain reserve, which means you're eating well, you're exercising, you're having good fats, you're getting your vitamin D in, because that means if you have good brain reserve, that means that when something happens, you are able to handle it. When we are really stressed out and then something else happens, that can just knock us down where we don't feel like we have the ability to get back up. So building brain reserve on a daily basis is really, really important. So these are, if you have brain type 1, which I have to say, in my years of doing this, I haven't met many brain type 1s. You know, if you've had a concussion in the past, if you've had any type of brain injury, if you've had a car accident, you know, typically something is going to throw you off, and you won't have what they call as a balanced brain. The benefit of this brain type is that these are the steady people. They handle things as they come. They can get upset, but they can easily come back into balance and make good decisions and have good relationships. So that's the brain type 1 is what I think everybody is striving for, is the balanced brain, the ability to be resilient, have good decisions, be flexible, all of that. So brain type 2 is the impulsive type. So these people tend to be spontaneous, they're risk-taking, they're creative, they're out-of-the-box thinkers, they tend to be restless, they need to be interested in something in order to focus on it. These are your excitable, like these are your rock climbers and your motorcycle drivers, and my husband has an impulsive brain, and he's been a rock climber his whole life, and now he's into motorcycles, and he's got to have that excitement in order to stimulate his brain. If you don't have something, if an impulsive brain type does not have something that is stimulating enough in their brain, then they will go find it, which means they could find, say, a relationship where there's a lot of drama and conflict, and they will actually thrive on that conflict because they are actually needing desperately to stimulate their brain in order to focus. So just like anything else, when something is off balance, if we don't know what it is, we will self-medicate. We'll find a way. We'll self-medicate through a relationship or through a drug, or, you know, they might look for cocaine or, you know, something that is stimulating. A way to balance out this brain type is they are low on dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter, which is the chemicals that help make the brain function. And a really good supplement for them is something that's called focus and energy. And these supplements that I'm going to be talking about, if you have this brain type as part of your assessment, you will see the supplements that Dr. Amen suggests in there. The focus and energy helps to stimulate and give dopamine to that part of the brain, to the prefrontal cortex, to be able to make decisions and stay focused. One thing food-wise for this type of brain is that they really want a majority of protein in their diet. Carbohydrates will actually increase their impulsivity. So it'll actually make worse when they're off balance. It'll make the spontaneous and the risk-taking actually worse. So instead of, thinking about, I'm thinking of kids, if they want to like go on the roof and they want to jump off and they've just had a bunch of, rice or a bunch of pasta or a bunch of sugar that has actually, or a carbohydrate that's actually made their brain fuzzy, then they will actually jump off that roof because they won't have the ability to put the brakes on. So it's really important to understand what's going on in that person's brain. The benefit of an impulsivity brain type is that they are fabulously creative. They see things in a very different way. They give different perspectives and they make the world fun and exciting. So we want to support them in their impulsivity, but in a balanced way so that they are not a danger to themselves or to others, like driving a car really fast or, things like that. So the next brain type is brain type 3, which is over-focused. So the over-focused is a part of the brain that's called the cingulate gyrus, and it's actually deep in the center of the brain. And the cingulate gyrus, this part of the brain is our gear shifter. It gives us the ability to shift from thought to thought or from action to action. So for example, if somebody was to come in while I was talking and I turned and looked at them and answered their question and came back and was able to keep going, that would mean my brain is pretty flexible. It's able to adapt to different things and then continue on. Whereas for some people that are over-focused, where this is stuck, what would happen is that person would go and talk to that person, and then they would come back and have no idea where they were. It can be, decision-making can be difficult for this type of person. They can be really stubborn and strong-willed and persistent. They like things a certain way, and if things get out of sync just a little bit, they get frustrated. They could hold on to hurts. They tend to come into a room and they find what is wrong in that room, or somebody will come into their lives and they will find things that are wrong with that person. The benefit to these people, to these brain types, not people, the benefit to these brain types is that these are the people you want on your team or in your family when you are wanting to finish a project, when you are wanting to accomplish something. They are the ones who are going to steer and get you through it. They may do it a little aggressively, but they will get you through it. These are the workhorses in the world. So we want people who are over-focused. We just want to be able to balance that when they get too stuck. So if you have a brain type that has the over-focused and say the over-focused and sadness, that can be really hard because that means that the focus is on the sadness. And a lot of times in Western medicine, only the sadness gets treated and not the over-focused part, but you've got to work on treating both. And that's why it's really important to look at your report to see what the suggestions are for the supplements and the food and everything else, because it's for that brain type. For this brain type, it is really important for the overfocus to have actually higher complex carbohydrates and actually a lower protein diet. The reason for that is complex carbohydrates actually increase the serotonin in the brain. And the serotonin is the feel-good neurotransmitter chemical in the brain. And so in order for these people who get stuck to soften that part of their brain so that they can make decisions and they can see the positive in the day and see the positive in the room and see the positive in other people, they actually need higher complex carbohydrates. So brain type 4 is the SAD brain, is what he calls it. These tend to be really sensitive people, deeply feeling. They can struggle with emotions if things are off balance. They're very empathetic. They can be pessimistic. The beautiful part about this brain type is these are the ones who see the injustices in the world. And so we want to help these brain types come into balance so that they can use their empathy and do something about it when they see an injustice. So there's actually there's a huge benefit to this brain type. So the supplements that are needed here is more dopamine. And if the one thing that I want to say is if it has on your report that you have SAD written in one of the 3 words for your brain type, is that if it says to use SAMe and you have a SAD brain type, if there is any chance that you or somebody in your family has a diagnosis of bipolar, do not use SAMe. This is the one caveat that I will say that he does not have explicitly listed there. So if you have a SAD is one of your brain types, and it suggests SAMe, and you have any chance of bipolar, do not use SAMe. Use another form of dopamine. SAMe can actually trigger a bipolar, a manic episode. So we don't want to do that. But if you don't have any bipolar in yourself or other people, then SAMe is great. It's super, super helpful. For food wise, for this brain type, you want to do actually a balance of carbs and carbohydrates and proteins. So, and then the last brain type 5, is the anxious brain type. So this part of the brain is called the basal ganglia, and the basal ganglia it sets our idle. And so this type of person tends to be very prepared and cautious. They're very motivated. Their idle is running a little bit high. And so they are motivated to get things done. These can be the workaholics in our world. They can be a little bit reserved because they are cautious, but they have a very busy mind and they have a difficulty relaxing. So the benefit to these are the doers in the world. They're the ones that you want on your projects because, boy, they have figured out all the things that could possibly go wrong and all the contingency plans. So this type we want to balance so that they don't feel the anxiety and so that they can move forward. And the supplement for this is GABA. And that's very, very helpful to just calm their idle down a little bit. We don't want to kill it. We just want to calm it down. And food-wise, we want more of a balanced carbs and protein for their food type. So the rest of the brain types are then brain type 6 through 16 is a combination of 2 or 3 of the 5 that I just talked about. So take a look at what's on your report and see where you're at with it. And I'm going to go ahead and go on to the other part of the report. So you'll have seen a graph on that first page, And there will be 3, 4, 5, 6. There'll be 6 categories there: sleep, memory, executive function, inner peace, mood, and flexible thinking. And based on your scores, it tells you which part of the brain health that you are needing to work on. So anything that's lower than a 6, I would definitely take a look at. Potentially that may be one of the things that you do during the 21-day challenge that you can focus on. So sleep wise, I'll give you a couple ideas. So for sleep, if a couple things that are, you want a dark, cool room. Sleep is absolutely crucial. Adults should be getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And depending on ages other than adults, they actually need more than that. That is the only time that the brain washes itself from toxins and reduces the inflammation that has been accumulated during the day. So if you're not sleeping, your brain is not going to be working very well. One thing to think about is if you have any question in your mind that you have sleep apnea, you must take care of that immediately, as quickly as possible in this pandemic, because what's happening is the oxygen is not getting to your brain. And so every night brain cells are dying. And every day the brain cells are dying, but they're dying in a much quicker frequency. And so with sleep apnea, that is one of the causes of brain health deteriorating, both memory and dementia risk and all of that. So it's really important to get some good sleep. And it'll tell you, one of the sleep supplements that he talks about, that Dr. Amen talks about, is restful sleep. And that is a really good, gentle formula. It's really important to go to bed at the same time, and it's really important to wake up at the same time. Your brain needs structure in order to know when it's safe to turn off. If your schedule is constantly changing, your brain is like, I got to keep on. I got to keep vigilant 24/7. I can't rest. And there is no way for it to rest and repair from the day. The other thing that happens during the night is that short-term memory gets put into long-term memory. And so again, if you're not sleeping, that function is not happening. And if there's any ADD type parts of your brain, if you have any lack of sleep, then the next day you're going to function at about 50% less than what your capacity is. It really throws somebody who has ADD off. They can really be thrown off. So for memory, one thing that you can do, that if you're concerned about memory, is you can listen to music, and you can put earbuds in, or headphones, but it's easier with earbuds. If you put earbuds in and you actually just put one earbud in one ear, and while you're listening to the music, whether you've heard that tune a bazillion times, close your eyes and figure out what instruments are playing as you are listening. And then the next song, switch out the ear and go to the other one. This actually increases blood flow and energy in the temporal lobe, which is part of where our memory lies. Another thing that you can do for memory is, if you're doing things like crossword puzzles and Sudoku and things like that, and they're really easy for you, that's not going to do very much for you. You need to do things that are hard for you. You need to make your brain work hard, because if it doesn't work hard, it is not building new cells and pathways in your brain. So if you've, like, one of the things that's really hard in the pandemic and everybody's home and they're kind of, getting into, you know, activities that are the same and everything looks the same and the walls look the same and there's no extra stimulation. Get outside, put on different music that you would never listen to, call your friends, ask them what their music that they're listening to, do something different, make your brain active. If you are doing the same thing every day, all the time, it is not going to stimulate brain cells in order to create memory. So that's really, really important. And the brain takes in information via the 5 senses. So you want to utilize as many of those senses as possible in order to stimulate the memory. For executive function, if that's low on your chart that you want to look to work on, one of the best things, so executive function is, it's your prefrontal cortex, and it's our executive manager in our brain. It's the part of our brain that that makes judgments, that makes decisions, that manages everything else. And so it's the last part of our brain to mature, and it matures about 30 years old. So if you're thinking of family members whose executive function is not working really well, they're not making good decisions, their judgment is off, they're having difficulty with relationships, difficulty in careers, and that kind of thing, that's typically your executive function. And the best thing for executive function is to get blood flow there. And that means cardiovascular exercise of some sort. So typically what I suggest for people is to get a small trampoline, and with a handlebar, especially if there's any imbalance issues, and hold on to the handlebar, but you want to jump on the trampoline because it's very easy on the joints for about 15 minutes, twice a day would be great. But if you get the blood flow going for a good half hour a day, that will increase the blood flow in your brain for 48 hours. So it's really, really beneficial. Like we all know, I mean, we're on the call, we're all here connected to HPA in some way, and we appreciate and understand why exercise is important for our body, but it is crucial for our brain. We have to get the blood flow there. Inner peace. A couple things that you can do for inner peace is you can either write down your gratitudes, or you can text 10 gratitudes to a friend. Find a texting buddy, maybe through HPA or through one of your friends, and text your gratitudes back and forth. You don't have to respond to everything that somebody sends you. I actually have 2 gratitude buddies that I send, and I make myself do 20 gratitudes a day. But 10 is really, really good. And here's the thing. When we talk about gratitude, in order to actually change the blood flow in the brain, you have to feel the gratitude. So it can't just be, oh, I appreciate my health. I appreciate the bed that I'm sleeping in. I appreciate my dog. You know, you can't not have feeling to it. You really want to be like, oh my God, the sun was out and it was so amazing, and the flowers out there, oh, the purple was just incredible. Did you see that? Like, you want to be able to get excited and grateful. So when I'm talking about texting your gratitudes, you want to get excited as you are texting or writing these gratitudes down. They have done brain scans of people who are feeling grateful and people who are saying that they're grateful. And when they're saying that they're grateful, there's no change in blood flow. When they are feeling it and really getting excited about it, that's when they have a change in blood flow. And that actually changes your inner peace and your mood. It's a really, really powerful. It's not just one of those self-help hype things. Another thing for inner peace, really good, is yoga. That's really helpful. As far as for your mood, singing really loudly, like as loud as you can, as loud as you dare. I don't have a singer's voice, so I do it in the shower. But what that does is that actually vibrates your vagus nerve, which is what gets hit the hardest when we're in trauma, when we're in stress mode. And so when you're singing really loudly, you are actually vibrating. And it's like, for people who have dogs, it's like when your dog gets up and shakes all over, they're shaking off that stress in order to go to the next thing that they want to do. And so singing really loudly is one of the ways that we can actually shake off stress, literally. Another thing that you can do is to gargle really loudly. And when you do the gargling, you really want to, you don't want to be like, ah, you want to be like, ah, it's kind of a crazy sound, but you need to do it enough to be able to vibrate that vagus nerve in our system, which is the longest nerve in the body. Let's see. Journaling is also really good for the mood. Really getting out those thoughts, especially if they're bothering you at night, worries or anything like that, dumping them out on the page and getting them out. Of course, talking to friends, staying socially connected is absolutely crucial. You can have a dance party on Zoom. I've been to a couple birthday parties on Zoom. It's not the same, but it actually is really good for your mood to have that connection. For flexible thinking, we talked about the complex carbohydrates with somebody who gets stuck. And so we want to have flexibility in thinking. If we are so stuck in our thoughts and beliefs, we will never receive new information to have a different experience. And our brains need different experiences. Our brain does not need the same thing day after day, which is kind of how we've all been living in the world right now. Another thing that if you're not having flexible thinking, if you're stuck, whether it's like you're having a hard time in relationship and you're stuck that, why is this person doing this way? And you're really, really stuck and obsessing about something that you're worried about, or worried about, your knee or something at work or something like that. You can go for a walk, distract yourself, and then again, make sure that you have some complex carbohydrates. If you are in partnership with somebody who has a stuck brain, who's very inflexible in their thinking, and you're trying to give them information to be able to say, hey, how about, we have this for dinner instead of that, and they're saying no, they're stuck on, something else. Take them for a walk, get their serotonin going, give them some complex carbohydrates, and then have the discussion that you are wanting to have. So when you really start to look at the brain, it's fascinating, because you realize that when people are doing the things that they do, it's not always, it's really almost usually not, it's usually not to upset you as another human being. It is because their brain is firing and wiring that way. And so when you have them take the brain health assessment and take a look at it, and maybe you can all do the 21-day, pull your family and friends in to do the 21-day health challenge, and the brain health can definitely be one aspect of it. So I think that's, I'm sure there will be questions, many questions. That was just a quick overview, but I hope that was helpful for everybody.
That was great, Whitney. I only have one question, because you covered things so well, and yeah, see some hands already. But you at one point talked about balancing with the balance, whether it's an equal balance or heavier on one side or the other with proteins and carbs.
Right.
How do we assess that? Can you give a better idea of?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking me that. So if you have like a 2,000 calorie diet and if there's a balance, your information about your brain type says that it's a balance of carbohydrates and protein, then you'd want like a 50-50. So 1,000 of your calories come from protein and 1,000 come from complex carbohydrates. So that kind of gives you an idea. Whereas if you're more carbohydrate, that's more like a 75-25 percentage on your total calories.
Okay.
So
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or vice versa of the protein. Yeah, depending. And so that can make a really big difference in how your brain functions. It's a big difference.
Just another comment or two, and then we'll open the lines up for questions from others. But I just really appreciated hearing that there's science around the gratitude,
Yes.
the emotion, the feeling that,
Yes.
and the connection to the brain there. I've studied some various avenues through, particularly through the Heart Math Institute.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's so important, guys. If we're doing gratitudes, whether we're writing in a journal or sharing them with other people, that you actually feel that emotion. So one very simple process to get there. I mean, Whitney kind of demonstrated excitement. That was fun. That was one of the highlights of the call for me, including and the gargling noise. That was another highlight. But so bringing your awareness into your heart space, putting your hand on your heart, the center of your chest, and then imagining your breath is coming in and out of that space while you think of your gratitudes
Yes, that's great.
is a really simple but effective way to start to generate the emotion of gratitude. And it's just slow conscious breathing too. Slow conscious breathing in and out of the heart space, and then thinking about your whatever brings that gratitude to mind, bringing it into the heart. So I just wanted to offer that as a simple process for folks if they're trying to figure out, how do I feel it? I'm just thinking it, but I'm not really feeling it right now.
Right. So, and that's great. And I will just add to that because when you actually put your hand on your heart, you're using, one of your senses, you're using your touch sense, you're using your breathing and figuring out where you are in your body, you're getting into your body. And then for that particular exercise, I think just focusing on one gratitude, something, and it may be like, your puppy, or it could be a flower, or, whatever is like the most thing that you just love and are so grateful for. And so think about, as you're bringing that up, think about the five senses in relation to that. So when I do it, I think of my beloved dog, who's my soul dog. And so I think about how he smells. I think about how his fur feels on my face or on my hand when I touch him. I think about, I don't do any taste. I can smell like his food. I can smell that on his breath. But you want to use as many of your five senses as possible, because that will stimulate different parts of the brain. And we're all about wanting to stimulate as many parts of the brain as possible. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So guys, you're able to unmute yourself and ask a question. So the lines are now open for that. So feel free.
Jump in. So I guess they have to unmute themselves.
Yeah. I'll just let folks unmute themselves so we don't have too much noise all at once.
Okay.
Whitney?
Yes.
Thank you for the information. I was a little confused with the vitamin D. You mentioned two ranges, 30 to 100 and then 40 to 60, I think it was. Where do we want to be?
Good question. Thank you. So the lab results, a typical lab will say 30 to 100 is the range that is quote unquote normal.
Okay.
From a functional medicine standpoint, we really want it in like the 60 to 80 range. And so when people have like 30 and 40 and their doctor says their vitamin D is fine, from a functional medicine standpoint, functional medicine means let's get the body functioning as best as possible. And that increases the immune system as well. So that
you can't have too much.
Is small, and you can
Okay.
have too much. And
Okay.
so you want to make sure that if you increase along with your doctor's knowledge of like, okay, well, I'd like to get it into the 40 to 60, what would you recommend dosage wise for that? And then coming back like 3 months later to get tested.
Okay, so 60 to 80 is ideal. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Whitney, this is Alejandro. So when you might remember at the beginning of this, we were having problems getting the reports back.
Yes.
So I took the brain test a couple of different times. Mm-hmm. The first time it came back as number 2. I recognized that brain type, I think is what you said. Okay, I recognized that one. And then when I took it over again, I got a number 1. That brain type I don't recognize at all. Okay. So, and so then I went through it again and I got again a 2 and a 1. So I guess I'm a mixture of all of that. Is that kind of how I would interpret something like that? I just found it curious because it was rather consistent in a sense.
Right. And so, and it depends how you answer the question. So that's gonna, that it could be one question different, depending, but it's usually a combination of questions. When typically what I have my clients do is I have them take the brain health test on themselves, and then I ask their significant other or best friend or whoever knows them the best, and then I have them take it for them. So I would then take it, say for you, Alejandro, if I knew you really well, and then I compare and see what feels most accurate. Okay. So you know your brain very well. That some people can't see themselves very well, so it's really helpful to have that external person. Okay. And if you're doing it for a child, like a grandchild or child, you'd want both parents to do it for that child, because that'll have, different perspectives we'll be able to see on that. So, but you'll be able to, like you said, you recognize and like, yeah, this is the brain type 2 feels more accurate, then follow the brain type 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
I have a question, Whitney.
Yes.
I took the assessment twice.
Okay.
And it didn't go all the way to the 100. It went along and it stopped.
Okay.
I went, oh dear. So I said, okay, cannot go anyplace. Did it again, came to a stop. And I never got any report. And of course my name's not on it.
Right. And so you had you put your email in? Had you gotten to that part?
Email. Yes.
You had.
I texted.
So, and when did you do that?
As soon as I got your Zach's thing, maybe 3 days ago or something.
Okay.
I can try it again. Let me try it again.
Yeah. Try it again. And if you can't get it, my contact information is in here. I'll put it on the chat. And I'll help you get it. Yeah.
Okay.
They had a problem for a couple of days. They would change servers, and
I think I did it right after they said, take the assessment.
Yeah.
Or right when you said you're going to do it, a little free service today, that little thing that came over. It's just maybe a couple days ago. I don't remember. Okay. But I did it immediately. And I did it twice, but it just ended before it got to finish all the way. So, and that's your.
Yeah, that's my email. If you do it again and have problems, then I'll help you get it.
No, let me just hop in and say a little bit that I've learned in the last few days about how it seems their tech system is working, based on feedback from folks who did it one time, didn't get the results, did it again and got the results. A couple things. One is when you're finishing up the process and you put in your email, there's a couple boxes under that say, would you like to receive the newsletters? Now, you're not supposed to be required to agree to receive newsletters. Right. But I think that maybe when they switched their email system over, they didn't recognize that the setting got fixed for that, because it seems like when people have opted in for the newsletter, then they've gotten their report. You can always unsubscribe from the newsletter, so that might be a reason. So I would advise opting in for their newsletter, unsubscribe afterwards if you want to. Okay. And then just check your spam folders and Gmail and other emails systems.
Right.
Sometimes we filter them in somewhere else, like a promotions folder. Mine have shown up in the promotions folder when I've gone through it before. Okay. So you want to check those other folders and check the box to receive the newsletter when you submit. The other glitch that's happened is sometimes the taskbar at the bottom of your computer screen is cutting off the button where it says submit. So if you simply minimize your window, then it'll shrink everything and lift everything up away from the bottom of your screen, and then you'll have that button. So certain little tricks I've learned there. I know that might sound complicated, but hopefully.
What will it come over? My assessment evaluation. What is going to be the
It's going to be from Brain MD. Will be the sender.
Oh, okay.
So look
Yep.
for Brain MD as your sender.
I'll look again.
And I would say for anybody who's on, if you haven't signed up, you can go for their newsletter. They have some really great information. And if you're at all interested in your brain health, I highly recommend it. There will be some things that you'll be like, no, I'm not interested in, reading, and you don't have to read it, and you can decide if you want to have it daily or weekly, but I end up posting a bunch of their information on my Facebook page just because I think, gosh, it's just so helpful to people.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Whitney,
Yes.
this is Helen, and I have a comment. You said that you have known very few number ones.
Mhm.
Now, I took the assessment and it came out as number one. Was I maybe not being totally honest with myself, or should I do it again like Alejandro did?
So I would recommend, if you have question about that after hearing the other brain types, if you don't feel like you resonated at all with some of the other things that were going on in the other brain types, what I would recommend is you could take it over and see what you found, and or B, I would have somebody closest to you fill it out and fill it out as they are filling it out for you.
Okay.
And see. Sometimes it's really hard for us to see our own selves. So that's usually when I work with people, like I said, I always have themselves and somebody who's closest to them, who knows how their brain works.
All right.
How we make decisions. Yeah. Good question.
I would, Inga, and I have two questions for you. One is your incredible report available that we can listen to it again? And I guess I need to ask Zach on one. And
Yes.
the other thing is, my biggest problem is lack of sleep. I do not have sleep apnea. I know that 100%.
Good.
But I do wake up a lot, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm awake till 5 or 5:30. I read, I pray, and I do puzzles. I love to do different puzzles, a variety. I don't like the same thing all over the place. So that relaxes me enough that I finally can get to sleep. But it's pretty normal for me to get maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep. I do not get my 8 hours or 9 hours at all.
Yeah, that's really hard. Zach, I'm going to let you answer the recording question in a minute, where to find that. It's really hard to live like that. I would say that what I have found, the reason that we wake up in the middle of the night is because that means there is something that is bothering us, and it's a biological process to give us more time to try to figure out what we are worried about.
Okay.
And so what you might want to do is to journal before bed and just kind of brain dump any worries or anything that you want to have on your list for the next day that you don't want to forget, or journal if you're having difficulty in a relationship or a worry about something. But there's something that your brain is like, I got to figure this out, and if and I'm busy during the day, and so the only time is when it's quiet. So that's typically what I find. So I don't know if you tried any supplements or anything like that, but
Yeah, I had very good supplements. They're outstanding.
okay. Because the other thing I would say, because I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, is I would say working with an acupuncturist can usually help get that balance as well. So there's a couple of different ways to get the sleep balance, but yeah.
Whitney, I just wanted to mention, I wake up at 3 o'clock every morning like clockwork, and I find it's because I have to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
At our age, that's what happens. And the thing that wakes me up is, that I have to go. And then most of the time I can go back to sleep. But sometimes I have the same problem as Amelia. So is there anything we can do to calm our bladder?
So that's I'm thinking of Chinese medicine. in Chinese medicine, that typically means that there's something going on with the Chinese description of the kidneys. And so a Chinese practitioner can help with that. The other thing is actually one of the things that Zach does in his HPA class is he does a lot of, how do you say it? You like the Kegels and but you use it different.
Pelvic floor muscles.
Pelvic floor muscles. And so strengthening those pelvic floor muscles just to make sure that it's not the weakness in that that is causing that. But the other thing is you want to get all of your water in by like 6 or 7 during the day. So the ideal for water is to take your body weight and divide by 2. And that's the number of ounces that you need of water per day. And a lot of people don't get that. And so then they get thirstier later on in the evening, and then they're dehydrated. And so then they start drinking, and then they're up in the middle of the night. So, so for example, if, somebody's 150 pounds, you need 75 ounces of water per day. And what I recommend for that is to measure that out and put that on the kitchen counter, and know that that jug or 2 jugs or whatever it needs to be has to be finished every day by 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's a little difficult because I take a lot of my supplements later in the evening, but I take them 3 times a day to spread them out. But I have tried to cut back on the liquid after 6 o'clock, and it still happens at least once a night, mostly 2 times. So
yeah, I would say then Chinese medicine, I mean, if you can get all of your water in, by 6 o'clock, and then if you're just having like a half glass, that shouldn't be too bad. There shouldn't be a buildup of pressure to wake you up.
okay.
But yeah, if you get most of it in by 6 or all of it in by 6, and then just have enough to get your medication down.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Whitney. I'm going to pull off now, but I'll get in touch.
Okay.
Whitney,
And this is Ann. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ann.
I appreciate it very much. Took good notes.
Good.
is there any benefit whatsoever to the brain when you can't sleep to take a sleeping pill that is pharmaceutical?
So that's a pretty slippery slope. If there hasn't been sleep for a while, I think probably 1% of the time is that you need a pharmaceutical. The thing with the pharmaceutical sleep aids is that it affects your brain. And so the long-term use of that is not good for your brain, but you also need to sleep. And so you need to work with a practitioner that can help get you to sleep.
Okay.
Is really important. I will say a lot of people take antihistamines to go to sleep. They'll take a Benadryl or a Tylenol with a Benadryl mix or something like that. And they have found that taking antihistamines on a regular basis actually increases your rate by about 40% of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Oh, it does.
So it's, when you take those sleep agents, you really want something more that's herbal, that is prescribed by a Chinese medicine practitioner or a Western herbalist or something like that.
Whitney, can I ask about the assessment? When your assessment is over 5, and it's a combination of those 5, as you've said, it seems to me that it's a combination of all of them. And so it's difficult to say if one is requires less protein and one requires more protein, what do you choose?
Well, and that will be on your report. Because it will be based on what is stronger, what is more off balance for you for that brain part. So for example, if it's the impulsive brain type, that the way that you answered the question, that was higher than, say, the sadness or the anxiety one, the food recommendations is going to be more based on that. So it'll be on your report.
Okay, so if I read it carefully, you don't think I'll have the conflict that I
No,
thought I
he's
read into.
very specific on all of it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
If you take my email address down, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can I go back to the sleep question? You mentioned different sleep aids, but what about melatonin? How does that, can that be taken on a nightly basis?
So that can be, it's a hormone. And so typically melatonin is actually meant to be used for short periods of time. So around like daylight savings time and, time changes like that, or if you're traveling or things like that, that's when melatonin is really helpful, because the idea behind melatonin is to get your brain to biologically switch to whatever environment you're in. So for example, when I know this isn't happening right now because nobody's traveling, but when my clients travel and they travel to a different time zone, I have them take a melatonin right when they land in the airport in the new place that they're going to be, and then right before sleep that night, and then for another 2 nights, and then they should be on that clock. And then when they come back, they do the same thing. So melatonin can be really helpful and beneficial, but it should work at like 3 to 5 nights. It should be able to, if that's what the problem is your biological clock is off the time zone, it should get it done rather quickly.
But I think it's maybe my body isn't producing enough natural melatonin.
Right. So then there's precursors to that as well. I would say working with a practitioner to get specifically what's going on. Are you waking up at the same time at 3?
No, I mean, usually if I take melatonin, I can sleep through the night, but I do wake up at the same time I usually wake up about 6 a.m.
And if you don't take melatonin?
I haven't dared.
So yeah, so it just, I think it can be really helpful, but anytime you take something over a long period of time, the brain gets used to it and expects it, and then doesn't create it on its own. So you want to, I mean, even with herbs, you want to do it to get things in balance and then let your body, mind, brain take over.
What about valerian and tryptophan?
Yep, those are good supplements too. And again, I would use them, for hopefully short term and get things balanced out. If you're having to take something every single night, take it to get yourself through, but then I would also really recommend working with a alternative healthcare practitioner that can get your sleep back on track. Because you just don't, you think about, herbs work really well, and they still also have to be processed through the liver. So I'm an herbologist. I prescribe herbs all the time, but my whole premise is get everything back into balance so I can get people off taking it.
Right. It's just very difficult.
Yeah, I know. I have gone through times when I have not been able to sleep, and it's scary. It's very frustrating, and everything then gets hard in life. I hear you.
Yeah.
I'll just speak to that for a moment too. The sleep thing, since it's coming up consistently. Real quick about the question about the recording.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be, as soon as this call's over, it's going to be already on the Asheville Medical Massage Facebook business page, because we're doing a live stream to that now. So it's automatically it'll take a few minutes, but then the recording will be available. And then that's probably where I'll keep it. I might put up recording on Facebook. I'm not sure if I'll have one there as well, but at least check the Asheville Medical Massage business page, and you should be able to get the recording there. I'll send out a link and then follow up to a whole client database about this for folks that couldn't join today.
Thank you, Zach.
Sure, Rita, you're welcome. So sleep. So I not too long ago went through a phase for a few months where I was having this issue of waking up 3:30 in the morning and just could not get back to sleep. And it wasn't because I had to go pee. It was my brain being on overdrive. It was brutal. My heart goes out to anybody who lives with that for any period of time, especially if it's going on for weeks, months, or years or more. But so what helped me? I did a few things. I think what was the biggest help, I'll tell you the other things, but I think the biggest help was starting to meditate on a daily basis. I started out with 2 to 5 minutes a day. I've gotten up to consistently 20 to 40 minutes a day, but usually in blocks of time. My meditations right now average about 10 minutes, but I'm doing 2 to 3 a day. But it started helping within a few weeks, a combination of that. And I was using an app, Insight Timer. It's called Insight Timer. There's other apps, Headspace, and so on. And I was just doing free meditations. A lot of them were gratitude-based, actually. I started out focusing on looking for gratitude-based meditations. I started taking melatonin supplements and also some adaptogenic herbs. Charlie's going to do a call soon about adaptogenic herbs, so we can do a bit of a deep dive into that subject. But I got them from French Broad Co-op. I'll send, I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I'll send out a follow-up email with the name of that product. It's just a little tincture. You just take a few drops in your water and take it an hour or so before bedtime. It's just designed to help calm the adaptogenic herbs. What they do is help direct your system to do what it needs to do, as opposed to being melatonin, which is actually a hormone supplement.
Right.
Adaptogenic herbs help you, for example, maybe produce more of your own melatonin, help your body figure out that's the signal it needs to be producing more of. So anyway, those are the 3 big things I did: the 2 supplements and the meditation. And after a few weeks, I started noticing a difference, and now thank goodness I'm sleeping well every night. But I've been consistent with the meditation. I've got 132 straight days. I know that because my app tells me, starting on December 26th till present day. And I've gone off the melatonin because, like Whitney said, that's more of a ideally short-term support. But I do the adaptogenic herbs still most nights, not every night, but most nights I do.
Well, and I will say, so from what you just shared, Zach, your brain was really busy is one of the reasons that it was up. Yeah. So, right. So your body, mind, and spirit were like, I got to get up because I got to figure stuff out, and I got to figure it out, and I got to figure it out. And so in that case, the meditation helps to decrease that trauma, fight, or flight that you're feeling. And so when you do that multiple times a day, then your brain doesn't feel like, oh my God, I've got to figure it out. It just is like, okay, it's fine. It'll be figured out. I'll do it tomorrow. And so that's a much different, that's why the meditation, works so beautifully like that. It helps take you out of conflict throughout the day so that you can rest at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Just so you guys know that in the chat, you can see there's a question over here. If you're not looking at your chat, someone asked, see if I can go back. Whitney answered it about vitamin D. Is it okay to take fish oil, vitamin D, and multivitamin consistently, or do you need to take a break from that too? And Whitney said, yes, it's okay. Just make sure you're not overdosing on vitamin D with it being in your supplement and multivitamin. So check those levels in your multivitamin if you're also doing the vitamin D, it sounds like. And she also says here, get your levels checked first for vitamin D.
You can overdose on it, so you want to be smart about it.
Is D3 the D you are referring to? And Whitney said yes, D3.
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rini.
On the sleep, the recommended amount of sleep, 7 to 9 hours. Does that sleep have to be uninterrupted, or if you read a little bit, the only way to get myself back to sleep, then I can sleep a couple of more hours. So
Right.
that's to be uninterrupted.
Ideally, in the ideal world, that would be uninterrupted. But again, you want to look at the reason that you're waking up. Do you wake up and have to go to the bathroom so that there's a physical thing that your body needs to take care of? Are you waking up because the cat or the dog jumps on the bed, then you need to shut them out of the room? Are you waking up because are you waking up and instantly starting worrying or obsessing about something that you're concerned about? And if that's the case, that means that you have been worried during the day and your brain is like, man, we got to wake up and figure this out. And so like journaling, counseling, seeing your Chinese acupuncturist, but there is something that you're worried about that needs to be tended to. That's why your brain is waking you up. Everything that your body does everything that your body does, there's a biological reason why it does it. It follows the laws of nature. And it's brilliant and it's innate, and we just need to listen to the language of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I love what you just said, Whitney. Thank you, Julie.
You are welcome.
Very informative.
Good.
Well, guys, just most of you that are still here, the vast majority of you have actually signed up for the 21-day New You Challenge. But if you haven't, these are the types of things over the next 3 weeks. This call is the type of thing we're going to be doing in that challenge. I might make a few of those also available to the public just as a gift to larger client base, but not all of them by any means. Some of them will be exclusive for our group. Still getting the full lineup. I'm in conversations right now with a handful of other local experts. But Charlie is going to be doing a session on adaptogenic herbs, which is going to be really fascinating. If you don't know anything about that subject, it's a wonderful area of supplements to learn about that most of us haven't ever heard of. And Jeffrey's going to be doing a call soon about, I think he just had to get off this, but he's been here with us most of the time. He's going to be doing a call about kind of setting the energetic space around you in your external environment as well as in your internal environment. So I've got, it looks like Elizabeth Pavka, Dr. Elizabeth Pavka is probably going to be joining us soon. She's a local nutritionist and just holistic therapist at large with a focus on nutrition. She's been doing it for decades. That I know of, she's probably Asheville's most senior in terms of experience, senior expert in the field of nutrition. So hopefully we'll have that lined up soon. So these are going to be some of the benefits of joining the program. We've got the daily support available to you to help you meet your goals in terms of brain health or your exercise or your energy and rejuvenation. That energy rejuvenation category is largely about sleep as far as the benefit of it. It really is. And then that heart-spirit connection, which we've talked about the relationship of that heart-spirit connection in the brain as well. So those are the focuses. And then we've got the support. It can be as simple as 5 minutes a day, choosing one practice, one meditation, 5 minutes a day to help you get better sleep and just get the advantage of all the other parts of the program as well. That's what I wanted to say about that. I won't give you my, email me. I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't know me. I'm just going to put my email in here in case I'm missing somebody who's quietly on this call and doesn't know how to get a hold of me for information about that.
Well, and I will also say the benefit of doing the 21-day challenge, that the way that Zach has set this up is that I'll be, one of the coaches, and he's got other experts. And so when you get stuck and you have something that you are needing help with, you have access to us. And so that's, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the program.
Yeah. I'm answering people's emails and phone calls that are calling me. So you're getting people are getting one-on-one support too in the Facebook group, but also calls and emails. So, just, reach out to me. Somebody else asked about recording the session on the Facebook page, guys, Asheville Medical Massage Facebook page, and check your emails too, because I'll send you a link to the recording of it. Yeah, so just email me, zachcomer@gmail, if you're curious about this 21-day program. It's as cheap as $1 to participate, which is
Steal.
all right. Any other final questions before we wrap up, guys?
No more questions. Thank you,
I'll have another question.
Whitney and Zach, for doing this for us.
You're welcome.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thanks, Whitney.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Zach. Rita signing off.
Okay. Alejandro, you can hang on, ask your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, Whitney, you mentioned about the 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and that kind of broke my heart because when I get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, I'm a mess. I'm groggy all day. I don't function well. My head's cloudy. 7 hours is perfect for me, and I get restless being in bed any longer than that.
What hours do you sleep? What time?
Oh, I usually by 11:30 to 7:30, time frame, something like that.
So when you get longer sleep, is that in the morning?
Oh yeah, it would be in the morning, yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, it would be like if I wake up at 8:30 or something like that for whatever reason,
Right. Yes, you will be groggy because between 7 and 9 a.m. is actually in Chinese medicine is the large intestine time. And so that's the best time to have a bowel movement. And so if we sleep we blow through and sleep through that time, then actually the intestines are stuck, and then in Chinese medicine we say the fog rises to the brain. So yes, you will be groggy at that. But if you go to bed earlier and get that extra hour in, that would actually be beneficial. And I meant to mention this, so I'm glad this is on the recording. Between 10 and 12 o'clock is when our cortisol gets released to then go into repair mode. And if we are awake between 10 and 12 and we get that second wind where we feel like, oh, now I can do XYZ that I didn't get done today, we are actually using the cortisol in the wrong manner because we're then doing things instead of being asleep and letting our body repair from the day. So the sleep time between 10 and midnight is one of the most precious times to get to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I've experienced that reality here recently with having a lot more flexibility when I go to bed because I don't have to be up as early to be at the office. And
right.
And those nights that I'm going to bed and going to sleep or close to actually asleep, meaning getting in bed before 10.
Right.
And I'm waking up. There's been sometimes I went to bed at 10 and woke up at like 5, so I didn't get 8 hours, but I felt like great.
Yeah.
Versus getting an hour more sleep, but going to bed closer to 11:30, midnight.
Right.
So in my experience here recently, sometimes I've gotten less sleep, but felt better because I started earlier.
Yeah, that 10 to midnight, which is hard for adults because that's typically like, okay, I get to sit down and relax, and you want to be able to do that. But what's happening is what's happening. And so we can either go along with the biological process of the cortisol being dropped and getting repair for that day for both the brain and the body, or we can fight against it. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody. We had a good bit of time here for questions. So I'm glad that so many of you, a lot of people got off, but thanks for everybody who stuck around. We'll have the recording available to you really soon. And I'll get that name out about the adaptogenic herb I'm using. I think Charlie uses it as well, the one for relaxation. So see you soon online in the fitness classes or back for a future presentation. Reach out to us with any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for all the questions. They were great questions.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much for this.
You're welcome.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Zach, where's your hat?
Yeah, I tried.
I wore one specifically in solidarity for you.
Yeah, I know. I went with a little more professional look for this one.
Whitney, thank you very much. I found this very informative in a clear, professional, digestible way that you were able to impart so much knowledge that was deep for us novices to understand and absorb. And for me, it was very good confirmation of a lot of things I'm already doing.